I want to tell you about an episode of a show named Caillou that I saw once. My cat was put down a few years ago, and I wanted to tell you about an episode of this, most likely infamous kids show that was very similar to what I had experienced. I was in my room playing on my DSi. The year was 2009, and I was on summer break, and after summer I would be in 7th grade. I was so fixated on my DSi that my mom told me it was almost midnight and I had to go to bed. We only lived in a 2-bedroom house as a result of the great recession of the year earlier, and my 4-year-old brother had to sleep in my room. I always used to wear headphones while he was playing quietly, so we had to keep the TV on Sprout for some time, so that way he could sleep. He liked Caillou and I loathed it. During Sprout's goodnight show, I saw the Caillou intro playing. The title card was different. This was a season 4 episode of Caillou, and he had more maturity than the previous seasons. I remember everything, with even my thoughts revolving in my head. The title card read, Caillou says goodbye to Gilbert. There was no picture, it was only words. The screen faded to Caillou's house, the sky was dark and gray. The house was at the front, which had no porch, and the windows were boarded up, and the color of the house was purple instead of blue. The chimney was also worn down and it had no top. I kept watching as I couldn't sleep anyway. It was a very depressing day at Caillou's house. I don't want to talk about it. I have never seen or heard the narrator that depressed before. It cuts to Caillou crying softly in the playroom. He had never cried in season 4, as I did research. Gilbert, why do you have to go? We were best friends, Caillou said. I was surprised that this type of show was talking about pets dying. Anyways, Caillou's parents were talking about the kitchen about Gilbert. Mommy, it's sad that we have to put him down today. I just didn't want anything to happen to him while we were on a vacation to New York. Daddy, you've told me this so many times, I want to scream. What about Caillou? Well, he'll be sad, but we had to do this anyway. He does have kidney failure, you know. What I hate is he keeps going up in the bathroom. He's lost it, Boris. He can't help it. I know, Doris. I'm mostly concentrated on Caillou. I wonder how he's doing. I'll go check on him. Boris walks into the playroom where he sees that Caillou is crying and Rosie was playing with her dolls. Daddy walks over to Caillou. Daddy, why does Gilbert need to go to sleep? He's sick, Caillou. When we go, Grandma will babysit you and Rosie. I'm not staying here. Gilbert is my friend. He can't die without me there beside him. I don't believe it. Caillou was never like this in these episodes. Do you really want to be there? Yes, I don't care if I get scared. I love him. Okay, Caillou, calm down and stop screaming. I hope you know that this is too grown up for you. Do you understand? Yes, Daddy. Okay, let's get in the car. I was speechless. I watched the rest anyway, and it showed Grandma going into the house, and Caillou, Mommy and Daddy, and Gilbert in the car. Daddy drove, and this was silent and boring. After 12 seconds of driving the car, Caillou had a flashback. It showed Caillou as a 2-year-old with the season 1 animation. He was with Gilbert, and Caillou looked happy. I love you, Gilbert. You're the best. Wow. As Caillou pet Gilbert, Gilbert licks Caillou in return for love. The scene then goes to white, and Caillou and his parents and Gilbert were in a green room with a white couch. Gilbert was a band around his paws as a doctor walked in. It was weird. Hello, you guys. I heard Gilbert had kidney failure. First, we'll put Gilbert some medicine, and then we will put him down. No, he is not dying, Caillou said. Caillou, cut it out. I told you that we have to do this. I'm not letting him go. Caillou, stop it now and listen to your father. Okay, let him die, like I don't care. I watched in horror as the vet was starting to put medicine injected in Gilbert. Now here's the shot that puts him to sleep. The second ingestion was worse. I was scared about this, cartoon or not. Caillou had lost it. He was crying uncontrollably at Gilbert soon to be dying. The doctor checked him with a stethoscope. He's gone. That was quick. Mommy, Daddy, and especially Caillou were all crying. You were my best friend, Gilbert. The screen then fades to white, and this wasn't a flashback. It was Caillou with Gilbert in a white room with no walls. The room suddenly turned dark, and suddenly Gilbert faded into nothing. Gilbert! Where is he? He's gone! Caillou started to walk in a straight motion. Despite the scene, it looked more of a flash on Newgrounds when it was compared to the show's regular animation. This went on for about a minute with violin music playing in the background. This stopped when Caillou was pale, and he was almost skeleton thin. Gilbert! The screen then fades to Gilbert on a cloud, sleeping. A soft heavenly voice chuckled. The screen then faded to black with Caillou crying in the background. It faded back to Caillou in the hospital. He was pale, and he looked like he was going to die. Caillou, you're too young to die. You're only 7. Caillou is 7 now? Well, it looked like Gilbert died 3 years ago. We love you no matter what. I know. I will see Gilbert soon. Caillou, I love you. Yes, Caillou? Yes, Mommy? You were What, Mom? What, you're adopted. We adopted you from the orphanage. You were a baby born with cancer. We couldn't bear to see you suffer without parents, so we adopted you. I love you. Caillou closed his eyes and stopped breathing. Mommy and Daddy and Rosie were all crying extremely hard. I actually felt sorry for him. The episode ended with a shot of them crying. The credits rolled silently, and there weren't any that fun to watch either. It was just white text and comic stands, and then scrolling through them the black background. I only recognized the names of Helen Depixurix and Christine Ladurix, the author and illustrator for the original books, and the credits. They were only people that I've never heard of. The copyright date was 2005, and the year that season 4 came out. The screen turned into static. I watched the static until it stops after 4 minutes. The regular schedule came on after the episode. The next day I woke up and I heard my brother had strep throat. My dad had to stay home from work that day. I spent the day with my dad's permission to go on the computer and contact Sprout about it. I remembered that it was 2009, and I contacted PBS Kids and PBS as well. And, of course, all three didn't know what I was talking about. I gave up and returned to my normal summer routine after that. I'm still scared about that Caillou episode, but not as much as before. I did some research on Caillou as well, but now I don't because I gave up. Well, that's about sums it up. If you have ever seen this episode before, let me know. And that, my little pretties, was Caillou Says Goodbye to Gilbert, a Caillou Lost Episode creepypasta. My final thoughts on the story? This is actually a really decent and well-made Caillou creepypasta. Now, I'm not gonna lie when I say this, because I have seen a few narrations of this pasta, and I'm gonna be honest, this is actually a pretty decent Caillou creepypasta. Now, I could definitely say it wasn't really that spooky, but it actually has a pretty good concept for what this is going for. Like, I definitely have to say I was trying to look for some good Caillou creepypastas, but either the ones I found were not that great, or in their own sense it just wasn't that good, or maybe it was just cliched or that. But this one, despite the fact that there was like no cliches in this story, well, maybe one cliche, but which was the fact that, the episode was on TV, which I definitely have to say, this is actually a pretty good creepypasta that incorporate that in a very well manner. Now, this story, I have to say, I kind of am mixed a little bit when it came to reading this story, which I remember I narrated this back in 2019, and now I decided to go ahead and re-narrate this story because it's been like a long-ass time since I last sat there and narrated this story. Oh my goodness. Well, that takes me down memory lane, folks. Now, first of all, I want to go with the positives of the story before we go on the lines of what I wasn't really, a fan of. Now, for one, I'm going to say here and say this right now that it's a realistic episode. Like, I'm not going to lie, it's a realistic episode as this author does know what he or she was doing and put this story to make it realistic. And that, I definitely have to say that it's actually really awesome. The fact that, the story actually sat there and, explain, in a realistic way on what is going on. That I'm definitely have to say. I really am impressed with how this story went out. It's a pretty awesome story. Now, there are a few things I did not really like about this story. Like, I'm not saying that the story was terrible. This story was actually pretty good of its own sense. Now, I'm gonna definitely say if most of you guys who watch Caillou, well, I can understand why people don't like Caillou, so that's actually one of the reasons why I don't really care for the show. But I definitely have to say, there was this one episode of Caillou that involved the bird dying, which was Caillou is getting older, and that episode involved, with the subject matter of death. But in this one, it handles it a realistic way, like it has, Gilbert getting sick, and then he ends up, well, being put down. Now, this was actually, I think for some reason, this is actually more of a feels pasta than a creepy pasta, which I definitely have to say it did this in a realistic manner. It's not, hyper realistic blood or gore or anything like that. No, it's not like that, which is a very good thing because most of the creepy pastas I've seen that involve Caillou are just cliched or they just don't really, really fit well. Now, the one thing another thing I have to say that I wasn't really crazy on was the fact that there were certain parts of the story that just didn't make a whole lot of sense. Like you're like near the ending, I guess it would have to be when the brother had strep throat. There that was actually quite confusing. Like how would he have strep throat after reading the episode? Like, I mean, I'm not trying to, hate on this story or anything. I like it a lot. This is actually a pretty good feels pasta. But to be completely honest, I am going to say that this is actually going to be a surprise to all of you. But I like how this story went out, although there were some parts of the story that just didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like, I don't know when this was made, probably maybe in, I don't know, maybe 2016 or 17 or something. I know it was around there then that the episode, well, the pasta was made around that time. Like, this actually is a pretty well made episode. I really do like how the story, had a pretty good, beginning, having it be a realistic. Now, about the Caillou, the one where, it talks about death, Caillou gets older, I think it's a banned episode. I'm pretty sure it is. But even if it is, it would probably be kind of dumb in my opinion. But also, if this was actually a real episode, it would most likely get banned. I'm not really sure. But it's just, maybe that's just me, but I might be missing something. I'm not sure, but in case if you want to let me know if I'm missing something, feel free to let me know. But I really do like this most about the story is that how it's realistic in a way, and it has a pretty good, concept going for it. The author in this who made the story really knows what he or she was doing. So that's actually one of the best things I have to say about this pasta. Now, this pasta, in my opinion, it has to be a pretty good Caillou one. Despite the fact that, a lot of people don't like Caillou, which, I can understand why a lot of people don't like Caillou because, well, he's a whiny crybaby. But in this story, it's actually pretty good for what this one is. So, with that being the case, I have no idea who the author of this story is, as I couldn't really find it. But with that being the case, if I do find out who the original author is, I'll be sure to sit there and give the story proper credit. Now, this story, it kind of looks like it was made maybe in 2015 or 2014. Not really sure when this story was made, but I think it was made around that time, but I could be wrong. Now, I definitely have to say that I really do like this story. Now, the only thing I kind of really didn't really like about it was, well, the grammar was mostly good, but there were parts of the story that was a little bit hard to read. Like, there was some spelling errors, and if there was a few grammatical errors in the story, that kind of brought the rating down just a little bit of the story. But I definitely have to say it was a realistic episode. It was really well made in detail, and the ending, everything was realistic. So I definitely have to say it's a pretty good pasta for what this one is. Now, anyways, with that being the case, that being said, this is just, a pretty good pasta, involving, Gilbert being put down to, Caillou being adopted and the cancer thing, which I definitely have to say was actually pretty amazing for what this is. Now, I definitely have to say how amazing that this all incorporated and made the subject matter work really well. That's one thing I have to say is that I really like how this all made a whole lot of sense to make it good. That's one of the main reasons why I actually really found this story to be enjoyable. Now, anyways, with that being the case, that being said, this is simply my own personal opinion. If you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We are all entitled to our own opinions regards to these creepypastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. I guess I'm gonna say my final rating of this story would have to be a 9 out of 10. It's a really good story. It was very good. It was well made. It was It was really nice for what this is. I really do find this story to be rather enjoyable, really well done, and I really do like how this was going out. It's a pretty good episode for what this is. It actually had a pretty good going for. I really do find that this story was actually really well made. So, I definitely have to say that I really do like how this was realistic, was really well done, and of how the story went out. This actually is a realistic episode. Now, anyways, my final rating of this story is a 9 out of 10 if you guys did not get my rating. If you want to call this a creepypasta, that's fine. If you want to call this a feels pasta, that's totally fine too. Now, anyways, with that being the case, that being said, what did you guys think about this creepypasta? Or feels pasta? Did you all enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what would you have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section down below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode, and if you're happy to be brand new here on this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because I make brand new videos every single day. Do not forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload, so then you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro, because I'm out.